First things first, 335 horsepower, 365 pound-feet of torque, 0 to 60, 4.1 seconds, and a top speed electronically limited to 155 miles per hour. How's it going, everyone? Welcome to Shifting Lanes. My name is Hanson. Thank you so much for tuning in. And I'm here because Toyota has invited me to check out the 2020 Toyota Supra at the 2019 North American International Auto Show. To the pricing, all the different colors and the availabilities, let's first start talking about the good stuff, the performance bits. Now, like I mentioned before, this is going to make 335 horsepower and 365 pound-feet of torque. That's thanks to the 3-liter inline-6 with the twin-scroll turbocharger. Now, if you've been following the news, you know that that is less power than the BMW Z4. That's making 382 horsepower and 369 pound-feet of torque. Now, Toyota claims that this is going to go from 0 to 60 in 4.1 seconds. That is quicker than the BMW Z4's 4.4 seconds. Now, I keep mentioning the BMW Z4. Well, that's because this car was co-developed with BMW. Now, back in May 2012, the chief design engineer for the Toyota Supra, Tetsuya Tada, basically had a secret meeting with BMW. And 2 years later after that meeting, they came out with established design hard points, the engine, the transmission, and the wheelbase on this car. But everything after that was totally different. And the result, you have a totally different car that you see today. So this is just one of those cars that you have to go to the auto show, go to the dealerships, and really see it for yourself, because sometimes pictures just don't do a car justice. And as I'm walking around this car, I invite you guys to take a look at some of the design cues that's found in the predecessors. So starting with the 1967 2000 GT, already you see the double bubble roof. It is very prominent in this car. It is prominent in the BRZ and the FRS and 86s, but in here it is really accentuated. And if you're looking at it from this perspective, the 3/4 shot and the side shot, you see this very long hood, and you see that rear overhang that just sort of disappears. Another thing that you also see is the rear quarter glass comes to a sharp point that is totally reminiscent of the 2000 GT, as well as the blacked out A-pillar, combining the windshield and the side glass. It is reminiscent of the curvaceous glass that's found on the 2000 GT as well. Now, when you move over to the back, this is when you start to see the legendary Mark IV Supra come to shape. Of course, you see the brake ducts. Unfortunately, this is non-functional. It was functional on the Mark IV Supra, and in here it's purely decorative, and it's mounted on the door and not the rear quarter panel. And then moving on to the back, you see this integrated spoiler that looks reminiscent of the high spoiler of the Mark IV Supra. And then looking towards the back, you see this trapezoidal shape of the bumper. Again, it just points out how wide this car is. You have to see this in person, but these hips do not lie. This is an extremely wide-looking car, and it's accentuated just by these tall haunches and just the trapezoidal shape of the rear end. Moving on to the other hardware, this thing is going to run 19-inch forged wheels. Now it runs a staggered setup. It has 275/35 in the rears, and it has 255/35 in the fronts. And these wheels are wrapped in super sticky Michelin Pilot Super Sports, a very good tire. And behind the wheels are the Brembo brakes, though you don't really see the marking Brembo on it. It is Brembo brakes. It's 4 pot calipers in the front. It's also important to note that there's a 50-50 weight distribution between the front and the rear. When it comes to front suspension, the new Supra is going to have a double joint spring strut front suspension and a multi-link rear. Now, standard on all Supras is an adaptive variable suspension, so you can instantly adjust the damping force on the suspension. And that depends on whether you set this car on normal or sport modes. Now, speaking of normal and sport, it seems like we can have an actual Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde situation going on in this car. Now, when you push the sport mode, it's going to allow you to change several different things. First, it reduces the traction and stability control. It sharpens throttle response, it increases the steering weight, it has crisper transmission shifting, sportier suspension damping, it's going to have a louder exhaust, and more importantly, it's going to have more aggressive active differential tuning. Now, the active differential can precisely control the torque distribution between the rear wheels. There's what's called a stepless variable locking from 0 to 100%. So it can distribute this torque during acceleration and braking. Now, this is the ultimate differential because it can generate torque vectoring. It creates a yaw moment. So this is going to be perfect for track use, and it's in line with the pure sports car mentality that Toyota is totally gunning for. So since we're on the topic of differentials, let's talk about the automatic transmission, because this is probably the most disappointing about the Supra reveal, and everyone already sort of knows is that there is going to be no manual transmission available on this car. There's no dual clutch transmission either. In place of that is the 8-speed transmission from ZF. Now, we've reviewed a ton of cars that have this 8-speed automatic unit from ZF. They have different power ratings from 300 Newton meters all the way up to 900 Newton meters, something crazy like that. So cars ranging from luxury cars to sports cars, cars that have 280 horsepower like the Stelvio, to something even crazier like 840 horsepower like the Dodge Demon. They all have this 8-speed automatic transmission unit from ZF. It is a highly modular transmission. And when it comes to combining production cost savings, having great power transmission, having noticeably improved efficiency, and also at the same time having super lightning quick shifts, you can't go wrong with this 8-speed unit. As for the 4-cylinder turbo option, that is certainly a possibility, just like how the Z4 has a 4-cylinder turbo option making 255 horsepower. But currently, that's not in the cards for Toyota, at least for 2020, and also at least for the US market. Moving into the interior is very driver-focused. It's going to have a digital instrument cluster with a high-def screen. There's going to be a shift timing indicator, and there's also an available full-color heads-up display for critical information like speeds and turn-by-turn navigation. As for the seats, the Toyota Supra is going to have racing-inspired seats with integrated headrests. There are also openings on these seats to fit a multi-point harness. Okay, let's finally talk about pricing. There's going to be 3 trims available for the Supra. There's no Turbo 4, again, like I mentioned before, but there's going to be 3 trims. The first trim, the base trim, is the 3.0, and it's going to start with an MSRP of $49,990. Then we move up to the 3.0 Premium, and that's going to cost $53,990. Then you have the Launch Edition, which is based off of the 3.0 Premium, and that comes in at $55,250. So if you're one of those fans that have to get the Launch Edition, then good news, there's going to be 1,500 production Supras slated for the Launch Edition. And again, that's going to start at $55,250. Each of them are going to have a uniquely numbered and distinctive features, signifying that you bought one of the very first return of the Supra models. So Toyota dealers are going to be handling all of those orders, and the Launch Edition models is going to go on sale in summer 2019. As for colors, there's going to be 8 colors to choose from. You have the Renaissance Red 2.0. It's 2.0 because the Mark IV Supra had a paint shade called Renaissance Red, so this one had to be Renaissance Red 2.0. Another color is the Nitro Yellow, Downshift Blue, Phantom Matte Gray, which is a beautiful matte gray color. There's Absolute Zero White, Tungsten Silver, Turbulence Gray, and Nocturnal Black. I don't know who came up with these names, but they're pretty inventive. So it looks like they're wrapping this thing up for the big reveal tomorrow to the rest of the public. I want to thank you so much for watching all the way till the end. I want to thank you so much for your attention. And if you like this video, if you learned something, please consider giving it a thumbs up and also hitting that subscribe button and hitting that notification bell as well. There's a lot of stuff going on the Shifting Lanes channel. We go to different reveals like this, we go to driving events, and we also have project cars. So if you're interested in any of that, please consider giving us a subscribe. I want to thank you so much again for watching till this point. My name is Hanson. That is the 2020 Toyota Supra. We'll see you next time.